Greetings, respected viewers. I'm George from Ireland. Here I am in front of Twickenham Stadium in London. So I think I actually need to make it a bit dark. It's too bright. You're not seeing things properly. Eventually I'll sort it out on the screen. That's a bit better. You can see a bit better. Okay, so Twickenham Stadium is the English National Rugby Stadium. It's also the largest rugby stadium in the world, as in it's dedicated to rugby. They have played American football here occasionally, but more than 90% of the time it's rugby that's played here, not any other sport. So the English National Rugby Stadium has been here since 1907. Obviously the building has been very extensively reworked since that time. Now, as you may know, William Webb Ellis invented this sport way back in the 1830s when he was a boy at rugby school. Okay, so the name of the sport comes from the school. It's not the name of the school comes from the sport. There's Rugby, that town in Western England. I think it's Warwickshire. Forgive me, I ought to know which county. So the West Midlands of England. Anyway, they're playing football. And remember, the rules of football were not formalised at the time. And each different school, each different county had different rules. So anyway, they're playing football, and William Webb Ellis cheated. He picked up the ball and ran, and then he touched it down behind the goal line. So in rugby school, they invented their own form of football, rugby football. Okay, because there's Winchester College football, or Win-Co-Fu. There's I think there was Harrow football. Certainly there was Eton football, which is called the field game. The full name is football as played upon the field at Eton. But anyway. So I won't go into association football. That's the sport we normally know as football. FIFA's all about that one. Telling you about rugby, or sometimes they call it rugger. There was this trend, I think, in Trinity College, Cambridge in the late 19th century of taking whatever word and putting ER at the end, like, I don't know, soccer. And would it be mucker? Probably not. Probably too proletarian. A few more. Anyway, they're doing a line out there. I could explain more about that later. So, anyway, in rugby, this tradition emerged that what they would do, they would try and touch the ball down behind the line, then have a try of attempting to kick the ball into the goal, okay? And so you got no points for touching it down. You only had to try to kick it in the goal from a sort of penalty, and if that didn't work, you got no points. So they said, okay, let's not kick it into the goal, let's kick it over the goal. And then they eventually developed those H-shaped hoops, H-shaped posts, because just in case it's gone over the bar, but is it too far to the left, is it too far to the right? Well, if you have those H-shaped things going upwards, it makes it clearer whether it's actually gone over the bar rather than too far to the left or too far to the right. And so it went like that. So first of all, then they eventually said, okay, a try is worth 3 points. If you get over the bar afterwards, that's a conversion. If you convert it, that's a further 2 points, so a total of 5. And then eventually, the 20th century, it became 4 points for a try when I was playing. And in the 90s, they've made it 5 points for a try. There's such a thing as a drop goal during the course of play, or sometimes if you've got a penalty. And if you get it over the bar, it's a further 3 points. What was I going to say about a drop goal? You must drop kick it. The ball's actually got to touch the deck before you kick it. Okay? Because rather than doing a punt where you kick it in the air, which is a far easier task. So a split second after it touches the ground, then you can kick it, which is a bit trickier. It can go wrong. So you see them in their English rugby jerseys there. So if memory serves, only 1871 when rugby was really formalised. The Rugby Football Union founded at a London hotel, writing down the laws of rugby so everyone absolutely clear what it was, and sports spread rapidly, because the 19th century was a time when sports became regulated, because, as I say, the rules for sports were very localised. But of course, this is the time of the Transport Revolution. 1825, George Stephenson's rocket, as in his train, gets going. So because of the locomotive, people could travel at speeds which were previously unimaginable, and you could be in the far end of the country after several hours. So people were no longer playing within their county, they're playing people far away. And in rugby, so how many players on the team? Is it 10? Is it 15? Is it 20? Are you allowed to shin hack or not? And things like that. And so they had to regulate it, so everybody knew what the rules are, so the referee wasn't in the dark, and they're all playing according to the same rules. So that was that. And the four nations began, as in Ireland, England, Scotland, Wales, playing rugby against each other each sort of January to March, that competition. Now, the England-Scotland match is called the Calcutta Cup. And I think England versus Scotland was the first international rugby match in the world. I don't know why it's called Calcutta Cup. England versus Scotland. Then France joined, it became the Five Nations. Then in 1999, Italy joined. It became the Six Nations, and so it stayed. But obviously, rugby, it was the sort of zenith of the British Empire, and rugby spread throughout the British Empire and to countries which are never part of the British Empire. Argentina and Romania at times have been formidable rugby nations. So obviously women got to play rugby as well. That's that. You see the oblong-shaped ball, well, that's the right word. The point is, it's not spherical like a ball for football, because it makes it much more unpredictable when you kick it. When you kick it, you can't really tell, is it going to bounce forward or bounce back or to this side or that side. Just depending where it lands, just a millimetre this way or that makes a huge difference. You get some idea of the scale of the place. It's got a capacity of 82,000. And now I won't do the full circumference. So you can't bring alcohol in there. There are boxes if you're very wealthy, you know, a private box in which alcoholic drinks would be served. So you see the red rose of England there, English rugby symbol. So the first international matches were not played here. Various other locations, including Blackheath. And then New Zealand was touring England in 1907, and they sold out all the tickets. So the Rugby Football Union decided there was actually a lot of money to be made from a proper stadium. So they bought this cabbage patch area for over £5,000, and they put up stands, and the rest is history. The First World War was used for grazing cattle because the United Kingdom produced only a third of its own food before the First World War and imported the other 2/3. But in the First World War, because so many ships were being sunk, it was obviously more difficult to bring in sufficient comestibles, so therefore the UK had to up its food production very considerably. And therefore every inch of ground that was possible was used for producing food. So they got the home kit, the away kit. So the rugby union, this type of rugby is called rugby union. Oh, here we are. Ah, yes. Ireland versus England, the magnificent team in green, right? Era Abu. Yeah, I saw, because we're quite close to Heathrow Airport, I saw an Aer Lingus jet a minute ago. All right, it's a sign. What else about rugby? Well, I won't tell you all about the sport there. The scrum, who are pushing, and the back, so we tend to be faster, and all that. If you're, some people find this very amusing to know there's a position in rugby called hooker, because he's lifted up by two taller guys called props, and has to hook the ball back with his heel. I know, tee-hee-hee. So South Africa is obviously quite a mighty nation. We just had the Rugby World Cup final hosted by Japan for the very first time, and it was England versus South Africa. So South Africa won convincingly, 32 points to 12. I thought they would win, but not by so much. South Africa, we used to call them the Springboks, because that was their symbol on their shirt. Springbok, this fleet-footed beast, a bit like a deer that can obviously jump very high, hence spring. Well, like springen, meaning like jump in Afrikaans. And there's a lovely little map there. But that was their symbol until the 90s. Of course, South Africa, despite being a rugged superpower, was banned in 1970. There was the Stop the 70 campaign because South Africa had this policy called apartheid from 1948 till about 1990. So the white minority, about 20% of the population, monopolized political power and had most of the wealth. So the black community were discriminated against, and they were not permitted to be South African citizens, couldn't represent South Africa in international sports, and indeed South Africa refused to play against any team which included any non-whites. So South Africa was coming here to play rugby and cricket, the two strongest sports, and there was a big campaign by the anti-apartheid movement to prevent this, saying no racism in sport. We'd like to play against South Africa, but they must allow us to have non-white players, because this all started with cricket. Basil D'Oliveira, a person who was partly Indian, being selected for play for England in cricket, and actually he'd grown up in South Africa, but the South Africans wouldn't play him because he wasn't fully white. But anyway, so the English cricket board, they dropped Basil D'Oliveira for that match, and some people say that's outrageous. That's not team spirit. We select our team. They don't select our team. And what's the other one is then in rugby, people trying to disrupt the matches here, and in Scotland and in New Zealand. And eventually South Africa was banned, and no one would play against them because they knew if you did play against South Africa, nobody else would play against you. And so that really hurt them. It sent them to moral Coventry. The isolation was quite important in bringing down South Africa, a way you could affect political change without harming anyone physically. Take away their sport, their entertainment. Okay, this is called a line out. When the ball's gone out for some reason, has to be thrown in from the sideline by the team which didn't put it out, but well, it's a bit more complicated. There's a free kick, and has to throw it evenly. The two teams are lined up, the forwards, 7 on either side, and you can't go right to one side to help your team. No, it has to be right in the middle, so they both have an equal chance, except you, the team throwing in, are you going to throw it towards the front, the middle, or the back of the line? And you have some sort of code word which you'll shout out, so you know where it is. And then your guy, your best jumper, he's going to jump up, has to get into the air by himself, and these two other boys, they're holding him up really high, so give him almost 12 foot high with his hands to get the ball. So the other people don't know which one to lift. That's why the team which is throwing it in almost always gets the ball. If they got half a brain, they will get the ball, get possession. So streets around here are named relevantly, like there's Rugby Road is the one I'm just looking at right there. There's one called Varsity Way, because famously the varsity match takes place here. That's Oxford versus Cambridge, been going on for well over a century, and that's the start of December. I've only been to it once, that was 20 years ago, quite pricey. And Oxford and Cambridge universities, they're actually not that fantastic at rugby. It's just because it's Oxford and Cambridge that it is here in the National Stadium, which will be half empty, but it's broadcast live on the BBC. It's a bit like the university boat race. They're not the best crews in the realm by a long shot. There we are. So I mentioned that William Webb Ellis from rugby school. He was later ordained an Anglican clergyman. Indeed, there's a pub not far away, J.D. Wetherspoon pub, named in his honour, the William Webb Ellis. And he died in France, which is where he is buried. I think he never married, actually. So anyway, that's a bit more of the stadium. There's a museum of rugby you can go. There's a shop. So Twickenham is not fantastic for transport, actually. We're about a mile from Twickenham Stadium. Ooh, that building, Webb Ellis House, after William Webb Ellis. But in a way that's good, because if the stadium is right beside the station, too many people arrive all at once. They want to stagger the arrivals, because you get a 10-carriage train arriving, have 1,000 passengers quite easily. And if they all get here at the same time, 1,000 people in 1 minute, that would just sort of overwhelm the gates. Now, it's about a mile walk. If you're fast, you'll do that in 15 minutes. If you're very slow, 25 minutes. So it spreads the arrival times. There are other stations which are a bit further away. They're buses, but people do complain that the streets around here get very clogged. And obviously, as you can see, it's fairly busy with traffic. Being sort of mid-morning on a Monday, you can imagine what it's like at a busy time. So it's a bit of a pain for the residents when it gets clogged up here with traffic. But, you know, that's the price you pay for living around Twickenham. Don't live here if you don't accept it. And you can get cut price tickets if you're a resident, which is to compensate you for the inconvenience of you know, the traffic going haywire once in a while. So the Army-Navy matches held here, various club matches, and so on. Lots of concerts have been held here, like Rihanna's performed here. I can't think who else, the Bee Gees, Lady Gaga, loads of stars. Okay, so that is enough from the English National Rugby Stadium, Twickenham.